You all know that I'm not from Louisville, but this city has embraced me and loved me, and the people that hated me just gave me the fuel to keep going. And this is a sad week in Louisville. And Keith Runyon is here, and Pam Platt is here, and you know we would be editorializing and talking about guns, and we talked about it years ago. So I just appreciate everybody that's here. I appreciate my sorority sisters who are here, and I appreciate my Divine Nine sisters. And you know, the Deltas love me, the AKAs feed me. I'm blessed. I thank Lonnie Ali for being here. Every time my family comes to town, we make our way to Cave Hill because it's important for us to go and to spend a moment with our champion. And we appreciate you because we know that without you, this building could not be here. You worked hard. It took a lot of effort to get this building built. And I remember that at first it wasn't even anything we were thinking this grand. It was going to be something. And if you have not toured the Muhammad Ali Center, you really should. So I know it's late and some of you all still work, so I'm going to, you know, we people that don't work, we can just talk. And when I told Sadiqa that I had, she said 20, 25 minutes, I said, Sadiqa said, now you know you could talk for 2 hours. So you all that know me and that really love me, y'all just listen to my stories and you know, Negroes make stuff up, add on to it and whatever. Because we are all the heroes of our own stories, you know that. But anyway, I did write down a few things I wanted to say. And I want to open with a passage from the Bible. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." That passage of scripture resonates with me because I know that if it was my plan and not God's plan, I would not be standing here today. I had nothing to do with where I was born, when I was born, who I was born to, and under what circumstances. In other words, I did not create myself. My mother told me if you run into somebody that thinks that they are self-created, run from them. I didn't choose to be born in Brooklyn in 1946. I did not choose to be black or to grow up poor in the slums of Manhattan's Lower East Side and walk up in cold water tenement buildings. And two of my cousins are here, and they were with me, and we were all little girls. We lived in buildings where the bathtubs were in the kitchen. And the top of the bathtub doubled as a table because when you weren't using the bathtub, you put a top on it and make it a table. It's where you cut vegetables and whatever you were having for dinner. My cousins know. It was New York City, but the toilets were in the hallway, and we shared them with other families. And when it was cold outside, people got slop buckets because you didn't want to go out in the cold into that nasty toilet. There were mice, and there were roaches, and there were rats as big as cats that roamed free. And rats attacked and sometimes killed babies to steal their milk. Yes, I have sad tales of poverty and hard times, but that's not where my story ended. Because someone, some being, some God, bigger, stronger, and wiser, had plans to prosper and not harm me. So I didn't get bit by the rats. I didn't die from the diseases that killed other kids when I grew up. Polio, rickets, serious bow legs, some diseases that people don't even have anymore. That was all around us. I didn't get sick from the filthy hallways that I used to play in and run up and down in, and eating the food that was contaminated by the unsanitary conditions, and the little critters that when the lights came on, they scurried in every direction. My dad used to say, the roaches live here, the other people just visiting. I could have been home the day that a fire left my family homeless for a while. And my cousins, we lived in the same apartment, and there was a fire, and they were little girls, and Carolyn was telling me she was under the bed, and the firefighter was trying to coax her out, and she was afraid of the firefighter during the fire. And we were homeless, and there was a lady named Miss Anna Lee across the street, Anna Mae, and she had like 8 kids, and she took us in, and we squeezed into that 2-bedroom apartment. But that's not the end of my story. You see, I was raised in a village of what I call up South Negroes. They are the ones who in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, when racist terror reigned, fled the dirty South. They headed north, uncertain of what would become of them, but praying and believing that whatever New York City had in store for them, it couldn't be worse than the hell that they were leaving behind. I am a child of the Great Migration. Black men and women who worked hard, they loved hard, they played hard. They lived for the weekends because the weekdays were so damn miserable. Bowing and fetching and cleaning and delivering packages and messages and doing the dirty work and cleaning other people's houses and tending to other people's babies for low pay. I always went to school every day, but one day my mother kept me out of school and took me to work with her to do days work because she wanted to teach me the value of education. And my mother had a high school diploma, but she was born in the wrong time. And my father finished the 7th grade, but he's the one that made me love reading. He's the one that made me love education because he didn't have it. And he was self-taught. And he would sit on the side of the bed and he would tell me about Egypt and all the places we read about. He told me about Jackie Robinson and World War II and Hitler and all of that. And my daddy never saw those places. And so when I was cruising down the Nile, I started crying. I said, Daddy, can you see me now? Can you see me? When I went to Paris and I ran down the Champs-Élysées talking about, this is Betty Baye from East River Project and I am in Paris. I am a child of those people. My growing up village was populated by the menial labor army. The people that served people who barely noticed them, who often forgot to thank or tip them. And they talked to us about those insults, those slights. And they did it not to depress us, but to arm us for what they expected we'd have to fight in a world that didn't love and cherish people like us. A world that didn't see our beauty or tell us that we were beautiful, smart and capable and even human. I never had a superiority complex about my looks because my daddy told me that I was beautiful. My daddy told me, my aunties told me that I was beautiful. And so we didn't even realize that we were even poor until later on I started reading books. I said, damn, we were really poor. But as has been said, the village that raised me, those people, they dreamed a world. They dreamed a world beyond anything that they could comprehend, and they dreamed it for us. And I tell people, my parents, they never owned a house. They never owned a car. They never flew on a generation. But God, every time I get on a plane, I say, Mommy and Daddy never had this experience. They saw the rainbow. And so I said, and I still insisted, I tiptoed in high heels through doors kicked open by barefoot people with little or no education. And they raised us. And I'm never ashamed of where I come from. I'm a girl from the tenements, the slums, and I'm from Harlem, East Harlem. And to tell you the truth, when I graduated from high school, 400 seniors, I had the 7th highest academic average. And not one person told me to go to college. Not one. No counselor said you are college material. In 1963, when I graduated from Benjamin Franklin High School, in 1963, let me tell you what was going on. The Vietnam War was going on. Medgar Evers was killed. 4 little girls in Birmingham were killed. And JFK was assassinated. That was the world that I graduated into. Nothing special about me. That was the world that I would inhabit as a young adult. It spurred my activism. How could I not be of service to my people? The ones that, as we say, that brung me. How could I not be of service to my people? The church, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the National Black Theater, the Black Arts, any way that I thought that I could serve, I would serve. And for 15 years, I was a secretary, a clerical administrative person. And let me tell you something, I gave my skills to the revolution. I gave my skills because what I loved about SNCC and those other organizations, you brought what you had. Whatever your skill set was, they needed it. Some of y'all not old enough to remember the mimeograph machine. You know, we ran the mimeograph machine. I did the flyers. And I look back now and I think that the people who were my friends that I was associated with, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Jesse Jackson, all those people, they were my friends. They were my friends. The movement needed my skills and I gave my skills to the movement. Everybody can't be out front. I always tell Sadiq, I'm a good second. I got your back. And thinking of being here by this Ohio River, which I thought was the Mississippi when I moved here. But I don't know what it was about Louisville, but my first plane ride ever was to Louisville, Kentucky. I worked for the Board of National Missions of the United Presbyterian Church, and they had a convention here. And I came here, I was the secretary here, and that was the year that they elected their first black moderator. And my first plane ride, I was terrified. Everything in my life seems like in some ways accidental. I was 27 when I finally started college because a woman told me, she said, you are so smart, you need to go to school because you think you know everything. And I took her advice and I started out with one little class and they gave me an A and it was on. I said, oh, I can do this. But at first I was resistant because it's like we got a revolution to fight. I ain't going to college, you know, that's white people. I'm not going to school. I got a high school diploma. And my daddy thought that was swell. But I met her, I was 21, I thought I knew everything. And she said, girl, when you grow up, you're going to be a hell of a woman. And I looked at that lady and I said, I am grown. And I tell her all the time, even now, I say, girl, I don't even know why you love me. Because I was like ghetto rough. Now, what you mean go to college? And she had all these intellectual friends, and I'd be all up in the conversation. And I'm telling her that, you know, intellectuals have a responsibility. Not just to read the books and regurgitate it. You got to break it down for the people. And she said, girl, you are really too much. But I was in every conversation. And I thank her for that. I thank her for introducing me to John Henry Clark, to Hakeem Jeffries' uncle, you know, Leonard Jeffries at City College, raising hell, and introducing me to Alex Haley. And in fact, I did one of the last interviews with Alex Haley. Don't tell me there's not a God. Don't tell me that there's not a God. I am an accidental journalist and a writer. I didn't know people like that growing up. But I had a teacher in my last year of undergraduate school, look, 7 years into undergraduate school, who said to me, you ought to go to Columbia University. Now, I worked near Columbia University in New York. I walked past that place all the time. I never even went in the gate. I didn't know that there would be a place for me. And he encouraged me to become a writer and a journalist. So I didn't have the same experiences as some of my younger colleagues did. And a lot of my Courier-Journal friends are here. And I was like the oldest person, one of the oldest people in the class. in the journalism class, but I would sit in the lobby, and there was a man, some of you Norman Isaacs, you old timers may remember Norman Isaacs, he was my teacher. And I thought I was a writing fool. And I wrote this story that I did, and in front of the entire class, Norman read the first 2 paragraphs and said, Baye, what is this shit? Now, you know, I was decided that Norman was a racist because he was picking on me. And then when I saw him devastating the white students too, I said, oh, he's equal opportunity oppressor. And as long as he was oppressing everybody, I'm good. But Norman's telling me, what is this shit? Encouraged me to want to really do this thing. And whenever I write, I think about those people that helped me. And I will tell you, you never know who is going to be the one that's going to take you across the journey. Because everybody that's your skin ain't your kin. Okay? So there have been people in my life who have really, really poured into me. I have to mention today the great David Hart. David and I fought for 20-some years. But when I got that fellowship to Harvard, David wrote that letter, and I was so excited. I was so excited when they interviewed me, and I came out of the room and I fainted. I fainted, but David sent me there to Harvard, and he sent me there at a good time because I was having some difficulties at the Courier-Journal, and I was about to burn the building down. And they said, you need to send her somewhere to save her life and her career. And I remember my mother calling me on the phone, and she'd never been in, don't know nothing about the newspaper. She said, baby, count backwards. Just count backwards. She said, that is your career. That's why you went to school. You don't let somebody put you out the pocket for what you worked so hard to get. And then they sent me to Harvard. And of course, the girl who said that I would never get that fellowship. Oh, please, she said. Well, of course, when I got it, guess whose desk I went and just laid down on and carried on. Woo, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm going to Harvard. And I walked through those things in Harvard. I said, okay, Columbia University, Harvard University. Girl, you know you from the projects. What are you doing here? Made some amazing friends. So Harvard is in my resume, as we call it. But 20 years after I first came to Louisville, I came back again for a National Association of Black Journalists Convention. And I met a woman named Carol Sutton. And of course me, I'm older, and so I'm in every workshop, hand up, raising the issue. Well, how you gonna cover the black people? Because the man told me, he said, how can you be objective covering black people? Can you be objective? I said, no, everybody knows only white people are objective. Columbia University just got my money. I need to be able to do something. So you know what I'm saying? And I had a little swag without the bag, but I was swagging along. So Carol Sutton met me, and she kept, you know, she was paying attention to me. And some of you all know that Carol Sutton was the first black woman, the first woman top editor at the Courier-Journal. And she stayed in touch with me. I was at a small paper in New York, and finally 4 years later, she called me and said, would you like to come to work at the Courier-Journal? And I don't know if you all know it, but the Courier-Journal was a big damn deal. It was the regional paper. It was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and I was going to Norman Isaacs' home. So that was a big deal for me. And the day that I came for the interview, a beloved reporter had died. Nobody wanted to be bothered with me. Nobody. Jean Porter is in here, and her uncle, John Filiatro, said, well, I'll take her to lunch. And John Filiatro took me and talked to me, and after a while, they offered me a job. That was 27 years that I spent at the Courier-Journal. All I can say to you, I did not expect to live in Louisville, and definitely not to be here for almost 40 years. Because I was going to do 2 years and out, because I'm from New York, right? And somebody told me, you need to mentally unpack. And when I finally figured out that it was the Ohio and not the Mississippi River, and when I met women like Maddie Jones and the late Bob Douglas, and they kept me plied with stories. And Reverend Lewis Coleman used to call and say, Sister Betty, we got a demonstration going on down here. And I remember meeting the daughter of greatness, Mattie Jones, after they had firebombed a black family's house in Sylvania. Some of you may remember that. Now, I'm from New York City. This is the Klan. And the Klan man, for whatever reason, liked me. And the head of the Klan then was blind. I said, well, how are you going to be blind and hating people? And my girlfriend said, girl, let me help him across the street. I said, no, you cannot. No, you can't. And they were going to have a rally. They were having Mattie Jones, who also gave her fashion to the revolution. I didn't care how much mud there was. Mattie always had on heels and a suit and a dress, and her hair was dead. Okay? I love Mattie Jones. But so they were out there demonstrating. But the Klan man called me, said, Miss Baye, I don't think you better come out here. And they were having a rally in the dark. Remind you, I'm from New York. My father done fled all of this, okay? So I tell the editor, the Klan man called me and said, Miss Baye, you better not come out here because I can't guarantee your safety. And the editor said, well, we need you to cover the story. I said, let's be clear. I am a reporter. I'm not a hero. The man told me not to come. I said, I want you to find the biggest, whitest reporter we got and send him out there. And we had a reporter named John Busco. Yeah, who was like Nordic. John went to the rally. John came back shaking. John said, I don't know no people like that. And they were going to send me out to the cow pasture or somewhere in the dark to go to the Klan after the man told me not to come. Let me tell you the things that we did when we were covering the Klan that were on the Jefferson County Police. And Gideon Gill, one of our reporters, is Jewish. And Gideon did an interview, and we had the speakerphone on. And after the interview, the man said to Gideon, said, what you say your name was? He said, Gideon Gill. He said, by God, you're a Jew. You're a Jew. And we played it around in the newsroom. This is the environment I walked into. This is not 1884. This is 1984, 85, 86, when they had Klan on the police department. But anyway, I digress. I didn't expect to be in Louisville this long. But I will tell you what. If I was in charge, Louisville, unlikely, definitely not, would not have been in my plan. Who knew that I would be a miracle? I'm just a girl that grew up hard and poor, that someone would one day call me a daughter of greatness. Me, from the tenements and the projects. Who knew that when I was a young girl, Muhammad Ali would kiss my cheek and I didn't want to wash my face for like days at a time? Who knew that one day Muhammad Ali would just show up in the lobby of the Courier-Journal uninvited with a box of books, a couple of boxes of books. And he sat there in the lobby and he was autographing books and giving books to people. And finally I said, Muhammad, do you want lunch? And I went upstairs and I got him some lunch and I bought him the lunch. And Lonnie, guess what he said? He said, I'm gonna marry you. And I said, oh, is it my turn? He was so wonderful, but what really touched me, we used to do tours at the Courier-Journal. And these little babies came in, they weren't even born. And they saw Muhammad Ali. And they crowded around him in the lobby, and he was in heaven because the kids were all around him. And he came up to the newsroom, and he was talking to everybody, and then he was levitating. He got up where he could get up off the floor. I'm sure you saw that many times, Lonnie. He got up off the floor. He was talking smack. But I said, Muhammad Ali kissed me. Who knew that Muhammad Ali would be a miracle? Who knew that I would be a miracle? Who knew that I would become a journalist, that I would write books, that I would walk the pyramids and visit the slave caves in Ghana and step through the door of no return. Who knew? Who knew that I would go to the White House and meet the presidents and congressmen like Morgan McGarvey? Who knew? Who knew that I would meet governors and senators and stuff? And my mother always said, take a picture because they won't believe you. So I got so many pictures of me cheesing with everybody. And I tell you something, in the black community, you could be in the New York Times or wherever you are, but until you make it into Ebony and Jet. But when I made it into Ebony magazine, they were running through the projects going, little Betty's in the Ebony, little Betty's in the Ebony, little Betty's in the Jet. But God, who knew that I would meet Supreme Court justices? Who knew? Who knew that people in power would come in and I would sit in their company in the editorial board of the Courier-Journal? That I would meet those people and that I would get to critique them. Who knew? My angels, those up south Negroes, they gave me courage. They outfitted me with wings and they told me to fly, baby, fly. Who knew? God had plans to prosper me and not harm me. My prayer today and forever is that God is pleased with what I have made of my 77 years and what God has given me, what I'm able to do with the blessings and gift that God gave to me. And when my life is over, I hope somebody will say of me, as been said of Muhammad Ali, that I was unapologetically black. That I loved my people, that I wanted my career. I wanted to write love stories to black people because I wanted you to know how we love. I wanted you to know how we spend our Christmases and how we love our mother. I wanted you to understand that if you read pathology in every part of the paper, when you read my column, I wanted you to feel good about yourself. And I know that some of the columns that I wrote, one man told me when I left the Courier-Journal, he said, I hated everything you wrote, but I sure do miss you. And what you understand is people hating you is your fuel because you always have the ability to teach. Everybody has families. And so people who didn't love my politics, they'd say, I love that article you wrote about your father. That article you wrote. My father wasn't Martin Luther King. My David wasn't famous. If I don't write about the people in my family, who will? I want the world to remember my people. And somebody told me that so long as I call their names, they live. So those angels, those up south Negroes who had names for the jobs they did, like Fish Bill, the blind man Neil, the gay man Dove, who wanted to borrow Kotex from my mother. I got to tell you, I grew up with real people, and they represented everything that is good in the world and about me. So I thank you today for making me a daughter of greatness. But I want you to know that God had plans for me, and God has plans for you. And sometimes when you think this is where you're going to live forever, this is where you're going to be forever, and God takes you somewhere that you don't know where he's taking you. I am so humble. I am so grateful. And when you honor me, you honor my parents. You honor my cousin's mother, because we came up on the rough side. But the rats didn't bite me. I survived. The rats didn't come in my crib. And there's still people living with rats and roaches and mice. And when I think about my life now, I think my parents could not have imagined some of it. So I thank you again for honoring me, for coming out to this breakfast. I thank my sorors, the Divine Nine, my friends, my former colleagues, my Simeon, my friend's son who is here, who I love so dearly, Dr. Ricky Jones, who was in my life early. My chum sisters are here. My friend Celeste Lanier, and I think Beverly and Sherry are somewhere in here. I tell my family, don't worry about me when the holidays come. I got friends. And they feed me, and they take care of me, and they love on me, and they let me know that I'm okay. And I thank God for Sadiqa Reynolds, because I always tell people, if I had to choose a daughter, I'd choose her. Because sometimes when you give birth to an adult child, you gotta love it anyway. But Sadiqa has become a daughter to me, and she really does take care of me. She tells me she don't know whether she's my friend or my mother or what, because she gives me advice. But I love her courage, I admire her, and I love all the women in this room who I consider the next generation, because we got to push the rock up the hill in our generation. And when our time has come, some of us don't learn to get off the stage. I'm going to get off the stage right now, y'all. I love you.
Of Greatness to join me up here. I'm going to scoot this way just a little, if that's all right with you. And while they're making their way up, she snuck in the back after we got started, but we're joined by Daughter of Greatness Hannah Drake as well. Hannah, thank you for being with us.
Here's Hannah, she's coming.
She's coming.
Hannah Drake, I didn't see you.
I would not have missed you.
Come here. We've got Brandy here. All right, now that's a beautiful room. Amelia, you do mine. Thank you. Now, yeah, go.
Y'all tag me.
I think we're ready. You know what? We need to get Miss Maddie Jones up here too. She's on her way up.
Queen.